If you're anything like me, poet, sometimes when you just don't have the energy or bandwidth or wherewithal or whatever to be creative yourself, it's nice to surround yourself with creativity in other ways. In fact, hearing others talk about the creative process or their writing life can actually lead you out of a creative dry spell. There are many ways to jumpstart your creativity. In fact, Danielle recorded a wonderful episode for the podcast called Five Practices to Ignite Your Creativity, and you should totally listen to it after you listen to this episode. But as a writer, I often turn to books to solve my problems. So here are some books that have helped me see the light at the end of the tunnel or fed my creative soul when the well was running dry. Are you ready, poet? Let's go.
Welcome to the Poetry Lab podcast. The Poetry Lab started 11 years ago to help dedicated, self-taught, and formally trained writers find a place in their community to write, read, learn, and collaborate. We help writers tap into their craft with radical self-compassion, unlike anything you've ever seen in a creative writing classroom before. If you're a creative person trying to establish a writing practice in the real world, this podcast is designed to help you carve out the time, the courage, and the inspiration to keep writing your new shit. Are you ready, poet? Let's get into it.
Welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of the Poetry Lab podcast. Lori here again, and today I am sharing some of my favorite books to help jumpstart your creativity. These are books that, when I read them, they just make me feel like I can do the damn thing and create. They are inspiring and thought-provoking, and they help me feel less alone. Plus, in my opinion, creativity is just a fun topic to read about. So let's get those creative juices flowing. And also a quick note, I am sharing these in alphabetical order by author's last name. They are not ranked in any order whatsoever. And interestingly enough, the alphabet allows me to kick off this list with a book by a poet. So first up, I want to talk about Kim Adenitzio's Bukowski in a Sundress, Confessions from a Writing Life. It is a memoir and essays that provides a humorous take on life as a writer. She talks about giving readings that are very sparsely attended. She talks about hooking up at writing conferences, and she talks about where she finds inspiration. And she even talks about the process of being a writer and how she organizes her life around her writing. Adenitzio is a sister poet in arms, a writer in the trenches with the rest of us. And here's one beautiful quote that I want to share. The one thing that is true, I am still a writer, and sometimes writers fail. No matter how hard we work, there are projects that don't pan out. Poems, stories, even entire books. When the full moon rises over the cemetery, those projects haunt us and torment our sleep. She continues, still, here's how I've found writing sometimes works. If you are madly avoiding one genre, your imagination may suddenly kick in elsewhere. I couldn't face my novel, so I fled to short stories for solace. Read this one. Hell, read all of these books about creativity with a pen or a highlighter or a package of sticky notes, because you are going to want to just underline all over the place or stick in all of the post-it notes if you don't write in your book. But I don't know, especially creativity books, I tear them up, man. All right. Moving on to our second book. It's Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. I've read this one a few times, and each time I revisit it, I underline more parts. Eventually, I think every bit of text is going to be underlined. So you're probably familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love, her memoir that is told in 108 parts about her year traveling to Italy and India and Indonesia. And here she dives into her own creative process and her beliefs about creativity as a force in the world. Big Magic is written in 6 parts that walk readers through the courage, enchantment, permission, persistence, trust, and divinity associated with living a creative life. And each of these parts is broken into short, digestible sections, allowing you to choose your own adventure. And by that, I mean you can read this book in small sips, or you can read it in deep gulps. And honestly, you can even just flip through and see what lesson serendipity leads you to, and you will get something amazing from this book. Book number 3 is Steal Like an Artist 10 Things Nobody Told You About Being Creative by Austin Kleon. I had been hearing the phrase steal like an artist for a long time before I actually read this book. And this one is a quick read and it's fun. Cleon lays out 10 rules for unlocking your creativity and then, dives into each of them. The basic premise is that nothing is original, so keep your eyes out for the influences that are all around you and then put your own spin on them. I don't know about you, but that takes a lot of pressure off of everything. I don't have to be original. I just have to be me, and I can do that. That's a really good feeling generated by just the first rule in this book. There are 9 other rules that cover living a creative life off the page and being a good literary citizen, among other important lessons. So I got to be honest, I am halfway through this list of books on creativity, and with every book, I want to hit stop record and just go read instead of finishing this episode and all the other things that I need to do today. Focus, Lori, focus. Okay. Book number 4 is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. So full disclosure, I have not finished reading this one yet, but I've read quite a bit of it. And wow, in case you are not familiar with Rick Rubin, and I wasn't at first, he is a record producer known for popularizing hip hop. He's also worked in a ton of other genres and has produced hit albums for such musicians as the Red Hot Chili Peppers, LL Cool J, Aerosmith, and Johnny Cash. Ever heard of any of them? So, with that lineup, and trust me, on the Wikipedia page, there were like a whole bunch of other artists that he's worked with. I'd say it's pretty safe to say that he's been around a lot of creative geniuses in his time. And this tome in particular collects 78 short musings on creativity. He talks about art as a portal to the unseen world. He describes a way of being in the world so that you are porous and able to take in the raw material out there. I have heard rave reviews of the audiobook version of this. I have requested it from my library a few times so that I could listen to it on walks and, just kind of be surrounded in creativity while I'm also surrounded in nature and moving my body, getting a little bit of exercise. And I swear, every time the hold comes through, something comes up and I wind up taking a hiatus from walking. But one of these days, I am going to listen to the audiobook. But it also could just be a sign from the universe that I need to read the book and underline stuff and then maybe go back through it with the audiobook at some point. Anyway, we'll see. Book number 5 is Still Writing: The Perils and Pleasures of a Creative Life by Dani Shapiro. I read this one a few years ago, and again, as soon as I picked it up for this episode to prep for it, I was like, damn, I want to reread this. So, Dani Shapiro is a well-known memoirist, and this small but mighty book is equal parts memoir, craft lesson, and reflection on the creative process. And this book is broken into 3 parts: beginnings, middles, and ends. And each part is made up of short meditations on topics like the blank page, luck, writing in the dark, beginning again, and so many more. And again, this is one that you could read in sips or gulps or straight through or just randomly and walk away just having your mind blown. All right. And drum roll, we're at the final book, Gentle Writing Advice: How to Be a Writer Without Destroying Yourself by Chuck Wendig. So you might recognize Chuck Wendig's name. He writes sci-fi and urban fantasy and is known for his blog, Terrible Minds, where he talks about writing and life. He has also written a number of craft books like Damn Fine Story. And this book aims to do exactly what the title describes: dispense gentle writing advice. Because so much writing advice out there is hard, like write like a motherfucker, or kill your darlings, or sit down at your typewriter, open your veins, and bleed. So, one of the things that I love is that Wendig opens this book by fully admitting that he's given out harsh writing advice in the past, but he realizes that a gentler approach is a beautiful thing. And, the world is going through a lot of shit right now, and artists are typically very sensitive to that turmoil. So, why, this book asks, should being a writer be an ordeal? This book seeks to find a middle ground by also eschewing the toxic positivity found in other books out there. But through it all, the book shows that while writing isn't easy, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it doesn't have to be painful either to be a writer. One of the things that I love about Wendig's writing books, and I've read Damn Fine Story as well, is that he adds all of the best footnotes. I swear. They lighten the mood, they impart additional or background information, and they make you feel like you're having a conversation with another person. I know often like the footnotes are, boring. No, wait, man, the footnotes are where it's at. I think authors are starting to use footnotes a lot more creatively and go on these tangents and asides that are interesting and informative and entertaining, but that don't necessarily fit the main narrative of the text. So I've just gone through 6 books to spark your creativity, but now it's bonus time. I wanted to mention a bonus book for you. You ready for it? It's your favorite book. Seriously, whatever your favorite book is, let that also spark your creativity. And if you want a bonus idea, grab one of those notebooks that you've bought that are so pretty that you're saving them for a special purpose, and start capturing your favorite quotes from books, from movies, songs, overheard conversations, even. Make it multimedia by ripping images out of magazines and taping or gluing them in. Or if you're old school like me and you still have a printer, print off copies of your favorite paintings or other visual art. Basically, whatever you see or hear out in the world that makes you go, put it in the notebook. And over time, you will have a book that sparks your exact unique creativity. Plus, it's a fun thing to look back on and see how your inspiration and influences have changed over time or not. Even if you don't change over time and really just kind of like double down on things, that's interesting too. That tells a story. I love reading these books where successful authors invite us into their process and reveal that they've been there in the struggle and the muck and are writing from the other side. And yeah, you could say that it's easy for these writers to talk because they've been successful, and that's true. And we can't control the level of success that we will reach as artists. All we can control is what we produce and what we put out there. But I think most of us create because we feel compelled to create, and that's where these people started too. That's why I keep turning to these books, not for some blueprint, although I have totally gone through spells of looking for one and it doesn't exist, but to hear from people who are doing what I want to be doing, creating. I hope these reading recommendations have sparked your curiosity and help you write some new shit. If you liked this episode, please give us a like and a follow and help us spread the word about our podcast by texting the link to a few creative friends. You can also find us at thepoetrylab.com/podcast. That's all for now. I'll see you soon at the Poetry Lab.